Proinsias De Rossa, you're very welcome to the Institute of International and European Affairs. Thanks very much for agreeing to chat to us about your campaign to be re-elected to the European Parliament. You were a member of the European Parliament from 1989 to 1992 for the Workers' Party, and since June 1999 you've been Labour Party MEP for Dublin. I suppose the biggest question really, I suppose a lot of people are wondering about this, is how do you make issues that are discussed in the European Parliament relevant for people in the streets of Dublin, I suppose, who are worried mainly about local issues or domestic issues? How do you communicate your work in the European Parliament to these people?
Well, the tools I use are quite simply the old-fashioned ones of leaflets explaining on particular issues, correspondence to organisations that are lobbying me on a particular issue, either agreeing with them or disagreeing with them on occasions, but also using the web to sort of put information up there for anybody to access as they choose. One of the dilemmas that all organisations have, whether they're big or small, is what information is the public interested in. And you can pump out millions of words of information. Unless the person who's receiving that information is actually interested in that particular issue, then they'll just ignore it. So trying to target the information at interest groups, and by picking up, if you like, concerns that people have, maybe in a number of different parts of the city, by addressing those issues in the Parliament with questions and so on, and letting them know what I'm doing on that basis. It's really, to a large extent, it's hit and miss, because the constituency is so large and the range of issues is so large. But nevertheless, we have to keep trying.
And then do you find any resistance from people when it comes to communicating actually what the European Parliament can do? I mean, I suppose it would be difficult because there's not really a great awareness in Ireland about the European Parliament, about the powers of the European Parliament. I'm speaking from a general perspective, of course, but I mean, is it difficult, for example, for you to identify maybe 3 policy achievements in the last Parliament in terms of laws, maybe, and then communicating that to people, and people might say, well, yeah, I remember that coming from the European Parliament, or do they associate that more with the local domestic issues?
I think certainly, I mean, I'm a member of the Employment and Social Affairs Committee, and that's the main area of my work. Also Vice Chair of the Palestinian delegation, the Parliament's delegation to the Palestinian Authority. So those are my 2 key areas. I work in other areas as well. So the issues that I'm most proud of, if you like, is the fact that we managed in the committee to get a final agreement on the directive for putting regulation in place for temporary work agencies, so that there's equality in the workplaces between temporary workers and permanent contract workers and so forth. I think too the report I was involved with on the future of the European social model, where we outlined what needed to be done to strengthen it and to reinforce it. I think we would have to revisit that in the new Parliament, given the social and economic crisis we're now in. And I suppose then the other area, I suppose a failure in a sense, was the resistance of the Council of Ministers to the reforms we were looking for on working time, where a number of states simply refused to drop the opt-out, which in my view will be disastrous for the European Union into the future. And so we need to go back to that again, in my view, in the new Parliament.
So you've mentioned some priorities there, many social model reforms that we'd have in the next European Parliament. That would obviously be a big issue for Labour. Is there any other issues then in the European Parliament? It's going to be a Parliament of 5 years duration.
Yeah, the ones that spring to mind, well, for you mean the future Parliament?
In the future Parliament, yeah.
The future Parliament. I think we have to continue to pursue a good deal from the climate change conference in December. The Copenhagen conference in December. The Parliament has taken a good position in my view. We're looking for 20% reduction in emissions by the year 2020. We've actually agreed in the Parliament that we should actually push for 30 if we can get it. But the minimum, as far as we're concerned, is what we should get is 20% reduction by 2020. I think the other area is to insist that the incoming Commission has to have a priority for the next 5 years of jobs, helping to retain jobs and create jobs through encouraging investment via the European Investment Bank, through retraining fund, the globalisation fund, through encouraging member states to strengthen their social supports for people, particularly people on the margins, at a time when income is extremely tight for everybody. But now, nevertheless, we must ensure that this recession, it does not hit the most vulnerable. They, after all, were not the ones who caused the recession.
Absolutely. You mentioned the incoming Commission. The European Parliament will play a strong role in electing, I suppose, the next President of the European Commission. This is the body that will look after formulating the laws that come from the European Union. Of course, the Parliament has the ability to amend and reform those laws, but it will be essentially the Commission that will be putting pen to paper to begin with. The President of the Commission, the current one, José Manuel Barroso, has said that he would like to be re-elected. The Socialist Group, which is a group that you're a member of, has not yet proposed its own candidate. Is that something that will be discussed in the Socialist Group, or does it look like you will be electing Barroso for another 5-year term?
It's quite possible that we will put forward a candidate once the Parliament is reformed, because we have to wait the outcome. The Council is obliged to take into account the outcome of the elections. We're hoping, obviously, that we will increase our strength in the next Parliament, but I think the question as to what alliances we can create behind a candidate who will be willing to take on the Socialist Group's agenda. I mean, one of the key priorities for the Socialist Group, apart from what I've already mentioned, is the whole area of regulation of the financial sector. The problem up to now has been that the Commissioner in charge of that area, unfortunately again an Irishman, has been very slow to act in that area, despite pressure from my own group and from the Parliament in general. So that will be one of the key areas. And then, of course, the social agenda. Whatever candidate is putting themselves forward, we know will only get the support of the Socialist Group if they commit themselves to strong regulation of the financial sector and a strong programme on supporting job creation and job retention.
And of course, the Lisbon Treaty will expand.
The Lisbon Treaty. Well, the Parliament is on record a number of times of supporting the Lisbon Treaty. Almost immediately after the European elections, the Irish government will be concluding its negotiations with the Council on the guarantees that they've sought. I haven't seen any drafts of those guarantees. My party, the Labour Party, has already made clear to the Irish government our concerns that the guarantees must not restrict the rights of working people with regard to, or anybody else, any citizen of Ireland, with regard to the application of the Charter of Fundamental Rights.
I'm sure we'll be in touch with you again to speak about the
outcome
of these issues. Briefly then, in 30 seconds, why should people vote for you to serve them as an MEP for Dublin?
Well, I suppose because of my record, I think I have a decent record of work in the Parliament. I have promoted progressive issues. I have defended human rights. I have been active on the inquiry into rendition in Europe and on equitable life. I have generally faithfully sort of pursued the manifesto objectives that the Labour Party put forward in the last election, and I would intend to do the same in the forthcoming election, or after the forthcoming election in the next Parliament.
Proinsias De Rossa, thank you very much.
Thank you.